Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to check out the Under the Bridge Tool and Scale Tidbit. Now this is one of his first or second knives he ever made, and we're going to take a close look at it and we're going to do some testing with it. He did an excellent job with getting a nice minimal sheath. It's a nice leather sheath, and it has one of my favorite clip options, the Ulti clip. It just works great, and you're going to hardly tell this is even in your pocket. I've been carrying this quite a bit. I brought it on my trip with me. I carried it a lot there. What I love about it is I can carry this in my lightweight shorts because that's what I wear most of the time, and it's not weighing it down at all. This beautiful leather sheath is made by AG Leather and Tool on Instagram. I will link him down below along with Under the Bridge Tool and Scale. Also, this is his Instagram. Like I said, it'll all be in the description. I was lucky enough to meet him at Blade Show, and he let me bring this knife home with me to test and let him know what I thought about it. So after talking with him at Blade Show, he told me that he started out making custom scales. He still makes custom scales, and as you can see, he makes some beautiful, beautiful scales. Well, this year he decided to try his hand at making fixed blades, and like I said, this is his first or second one that he made, and I gotta say I'm very, very impressed, especially knowing how new he is. Now, of course, he's good with his hands. You can see he knows what he's doing, and I think he has a bright future in knife making. So what we have here, it's a fish and fowl knife is what he called it, his tidbit, and it's a perfect EDC size, at least for me. I like that I can get all the way to the end of the tip if I needed to do a little finesse cutting, or if I need to put some pressure down on that tip to do drag cuts, you can, because it is a drop point. And a small blade like that, I can easily get the tip onto things. You got enough straight edge to cut in hand without sliding out quickly, and you have definitely enough belly to cut on a flat cutting surface rather easily. The total length on this one is 6.43 inches long with a 2.65 inch drop point blade of CPM MagnaCut steel, and he has hardened it to 64 HRC. That is outstanding, and it should be an excellent performer while still being tough. I've tested tons of MagnaCut, and I've found anything from 63 to 65 is excellent in performance, and it still remains tough. Below that, you might get a little bit extra toughness, and I've noticed no matter lower and higher, the corrosion resistance is very, very good on MagnaCut, at least from what I've noticed. You have a 2.55 inch cutting edge, and your blade stock thickness is coming in at 0.098 or 3/32. So that is outstanding, especially when it comes to its slicing performance. You have a perfectly executed sharpening toil. I love that. So you'll be able to continue to sharpen up all the way to the plunge grind. Excellent job. There's his maker's mark right there. Super cool. And this one has a hand rub satin finish on it. Very nicely done. There is no jimping up top. That's something I do wish it had, especially like out toward that tip. You know, if you're doing some processing, it'd be great to have some right there. It's not a deal breaker or anything, but it would be nice to have a little patch here and maybe a little bit right here. And when I say that, I mean fine cut jimping. Being that you have that thin stock, you have a needle-like tip right there, great for piercing and doing the drag cuts. And you do have a nice sharp 90-degree spine that throws sparks really, really well. I took a quick video showing, but I was inside. My wife would have killed me if she saw that. But just showing you how easy I was able to strike sparks on the ferro rod. Not really something I'd use this knife for, but if you were doing feather sticks and processing some wood, you could, you know, make your fire with this if you needed to. But what got me excited most, besides the beautiful aesthetics of the knife, is the outstanding blade geometry. So like I said earlier, you have thin blade stock, and then you have this full flat grind that comes down at its thinnest portion to 0.008 behind the edge, or around 0.008 behind the edge. So this thing should be a slicing machine. We're gonna find out. Man, this thing is a laser beam. If you've never cut with a knife with thin edge geometry that has a proper heat treat on it, you're not going to get it, but I definitely recommend you try that. It may ruin all the other knives for you after you use this, like this one is doing to me as we speak, but wow, oh wow. The geometry, you could feel it. It's like a hot knife through butter. This thing is blasting through the material, and you don't have a huge blade here, but no problem whatsoever because I'm push cutting most of the stuff. And I'll be honest, the edge, it was just a decent edge. It wasn't even really super phone book paper sharp. It had a good bit of bite to it, which that's something I love. But when you have thin edge geometry like this, it doesn't even have to be that sharp. It's going to perform, and it's going to perform very well. I can only imagine what it's going to be like after putting a fresh edge on this thing. You know, I don't even know what this is sharpened at or how it was sharpened, but what I do know is that it is slicing better than any other knife that I've tested in the last few months, or probably this year. The only other knife that performed that slice as well as this one are my Steve Clory Customs, because he does the same thing with his performance grinds. And I had one other one, the Arc and Iron Abram. That's another slicing machine there. But man, I can't stress enough how much better a knife with good geometry performs. And I'm being pretty rough on this. I want to see if that 8/1000ths behind the edge thickness can handle some torques on that apex, and you know, pushing into stuff really hard. And it did. You know, when we were doing the wood, you know, you wouldn't want to do that for a long period of time because it's got a thin handle. And you know, can you do it? Yeah, you could do it, and you could do a couple of feather sticks. But other than that, you know, it'll probably start to fatigue your wrist or something. But look how fast I'm going through this stuff. I do extra of pretty much all of them because I'm so amazed on how fast it's cutting through this. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm using my pointer finger. That means this is gliding through the material so effortlessly, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I'm trying all kinds of different grips. The pinch grip's good. Being that you have the smooth scales, it's not slippery, but it's not as grippy as, say, if you had rough micarta. But this is where I got a smile ear to ear on my face. The 1/2-inch sisal rope. It's hard to put into words on how easy this is. I cut a piece, and with the first piece, we cut 120 cuts of the sisal rope. And I had another section is about the same length cut for the next knife that I'm testing after this one. So I said, nah, can't stop here. And I continued to cut. And like I said earlier, it didn't have a hair shaving sharp edge on it. I didn't strop it. I didn't do anything to it. But the thinness up there by the tip is so thin, with just a decent edge on it, it's performing just on a whole nother level. I could have done this for way longer than I did. If I wouldn't have been in a time constraint, I might have done it even longer than this. But I gotta say, I am more than happy and more than impressed with this little knife. Now, like I said, I'm gonna go cry because I gotta test other knives, and so this is where I brought in the other piece. And look, it's not slowing down in the least. We end up getting through 240 cuts and tons of extra cardboard and extra material by cutting extra pieces than I normally do, and it still feels great. It's not gonna shave hair on your arm or anything. That's perfectly fine. I can get it that way if I wanted to. I could probably even strap it to that if I wanted to. But man, I want more companies and more people to do thin edge geometry, not be scared about it. It's not that fragile. I mean, if it was like 5/1000ths or something and you had that thin blade stock, then yeah, I'm not batoning with this. That's not the purpose of this. It's a good EDC fixed blade, and that's all it needs to be. So great job. Cannot wait to see what you do in the future, man. Now that was an absolute joy to test and use. And then after using a knife like this that has such excellent blade geometry and has that high hardness, it just bums me out when I test these other knives. I had 3 other knives that I was testing along with this one, and it was grueling because this one performed so well. And now let's take a look at the handle area real quick. Quick macro of these beautiful scales. I mean, just that's artwork in itself. And what's cool about it is like I said, this is a custom knife. So of course you can have some minor imperfections, especially being that he's very new to the knife making, and that's perfectly fine. Not to mention, he's using very old material, which is vintage micarta in this. But I think it looks absolutely stunning. Just look at that. Look at all the depth. That contrast with that blue and all the other colors just goes perfect in my opinion. So you got a minor little imperfection right there, but you know, that could be from the material. But other than that, I mean, just stunning. Love that right there. And that's the only other minor imperfection, and that's probably from putting that pin down. You don't feel that at all, but you know, that could probably be buffed out. Just look at that, how stunning. Yeah, I could look at that for days. Now, if you were going to be making shavings for a long period of time, it would probably start to fatigue your wrist and forearms because he's keeping this one nice and light, nice and slicey, and the thickness on these scales is coming in at 0.42 inches. So, you know, for the type of knife it is, I think that's perfectly acceptable there. But if all you're doing is about the same amount of stuff that I did in the video, it was perfectly fine and easy to do, especially with this little flare out right there. It's kind of like a little gun stock pattern. These 2 fingers fit perfect in my medium-sized hands, and then they wrap around nicely. This is really going to excel, though, at these detail cuts. This is like a little scalpel. No hot spots that I noticed whatsoever. He did a great job of softening the edges. And like I said, my medium-sized hands, I get a nice 4-finger grip. I got a little bit left over, so large hands might be okay. Extra large hands, if you're okay with having like a 3-finger, 3.5 maybe finger grip, then yeah, but very easy to maneuver. Let's check the balance point out on this one. It is a little back on the knife, but as light as this knife is, it didn't matter whatsoever to me. Without the sheath, is coming in at 1.69 grams, and with the sheath that has an ulti-clip, coming in at 3.18 ounces. That's why I did not feel it at all carrying it in my lightweight shorts. I absolutely love the way this one carries. It's very slim, and as you can see, I mean, if I had a longer shirt on like that, it would bury completely. You got enough handle sticking out that I can pull it out easily, use it. And just like any other, I usually just pop the sheath up, put it back, and go about my business. Love the sheath. You don't have to worry about that ulti-clip coming out because that's a tight fit. So excellent sheath, excellent knife. Now we're gonna do some quick size comparisons. First with some locking folders with the Ontario Wrap 1 and 2. As you can see, it's smaller than both of these. Next up, we have the White River Knives M1. As you can see, it's a little bit smaller than the M1, and it's larger than the TKL Piranha. And as you can see, it's a little bit smaller than the Bradford Guardian 3 and the MKM Pocket Tango. And I mean, it is right in between the Essie Azula 1 and 2. It's just a hair longer than the Azula. And lastly, it's a hair shorter than the Rainier Knives Fast Pack, and it's almost identical in length to the Benchmade Hidden Canyon. All right, nitpicks and complaints. These are very minor nitpicks, and you got to remember that this is his first or second knife he's ever done in his life. So, you know, these things are kind of dumb to even talk about, but like I said, it's just a few little minor imperfections in the scales, like there and up here. But, you know, like I said, it's not hurting the functionality whatsoever. And maybe some fine cut jimping right here and right here would be great, just to give you a little bit extra grip if you're, you know, if you're cleaning some game or something so you don't slip off. And this is probably not a big deal at all because he was trying to get these done for blade shows, so he might have had to hurry a little bit. But whenever this one was sharpened, I don't know if you can see that, but the edge, it doesn't apex the edge in the very back right there. Not a big deal after the first sharpening. That would be perfectly fine. The finishing on the blade is pretty good, you know, like I said, especially being that he's very new to this. You know, there's a little bit of waviness up in this area, but for the most part, it is absolute perfection. And would I recommend this knife? Absolutely. This was one of the funnest knives that I've had the pleasure to test in a while. I think it is aesthetically beautiful. I absolutely love the carry sheath. This works absolutely perfect. And if you're interested in scales, some very sweet, exotic looking scales, definitely check him out for that. And if you're interested in something like this, you're going to have to follow him on Instagram. He does this on his spare time. Now, maybe if this blows up, maybe it could be a full-time gig for him. I don't know if that's even something he's wanting to do. But if so, I definitely think he could have a bright future in it. If you're wanting something like this, you can reach out to him. I don't think he's doing books or anything. He told somebody that he's just going to make them and then he's going to post them. First come, first serve. I think that's how it's going to go. And that's totally understandable. But I can promise you, you will not be unsatisfied with the product. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Now I got to go boohoo and pout about the other knives I have to test after testing this one. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave those down below. I hope every one of y'all is having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one.